The men's Olympic hockey tournament is now underway. We'll talk about some of the early games, including Canada and the United States. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On NHL Squad Show Olympic Edition.
You are talking puck with the NHL Squad Show. From the Oilers to the Stars, Golden Knights, and the Panthers, the Rangers, Avalanche, and yes, even the Maple Leafs. The Locked On Podcast Network brings together all its local experts to provide the scoops, breakdowns, and comprehensive looks at all the NHL, with plenty of trash talk to go with it. Don't miss the hard hits and glove-dropping hot takes on the Locked On NHL Squad Show. It's time to drop the puck.
Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the NHL Squad Show Olympic Edition. I'm Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders. I am joined by David Morisuti from Locked On Leafs, Zach Berman from Locked On New Jersey Devils, and Ian McLaren of Locked On Boston Bruins. Today, as we talk about everything going on now in the Olympic hockey tournament, I want to thank everyone who makes the Locked On NHL Squad Show your first listen today. And don't forget to subscribe to Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And thanks for helping to make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We've had the first games of the men's tournament so far now getting underway. And let's start with, two countries that are not considered local right now, Finland and Slovakia, and what your thoughts are on that first match there.
Bit surprising. I thought, looking like it was going to be a pretty tight game, and then all of a sudden Finland just falls apart in that third period. I mean, I know coming into it, we didn't really give Slovakia their due as much just because Finland they had more of the star talent. But Slafkovsky, give him a lot of credit because, he's had his ups and downs, during his time with the Canadians. And I think, that was a bit of a statement game for them to say, hey, don't forget about Slovakia here. We got the opportunity to give some teams a tough run in this tournament.
Yeah, I really thought the NHL dropped the ball last year by not including Slovakia and Czechia in the Four Nations face-off, especially with games being played in Montreal. Slafkovsky should have been playing on home ice. Games being played in Boston featured David Pastrnak on home ice. I don't know what it is about Slafkovsky, but he just elevates his game at the Olympics. He was incredible at the previous Olympics and really raised his stock, kind of helped him to become the #1 overall pick. He kind of made a Bruins defenseman look pretty silly, and Henri Jokiharju on that opening goal that he scored that really set the tone. And I could see him being a real breakout performer in this tournament for sure.
On his countryman Simon Nemec, first line minutes, and he's like a running back in football. The more you play him and the more responsibility you give him, the better. At least that's just what we've seen from him in New Jersey, but he was phenomenal on both ends yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt he had his moments and really did shine. What does this mean? We talked a little bit about what this does for Slovakia, but how does Finland respond to this?
That's a real good question because this is a team that I think they had a little more pressure on them going into this tournament where, again, you got some star talent there. You have some guys who have also had some tough seasons like UC Saros. To me, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on this guy because he hasn't been playing up to his, the caliber that we've expected from him, even at the NHL level. So if I'm Finland, that's probably the first question I have is UC Saros going to have to be some question marks about whether or not he's the guy to carry this going forward because it's not a good start for him.
You know what? I was going to bring that up as well. Boston Bruins goaltender Joonas Korpisalo was a late addition to Team Finland because Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in Buffalo is injured. And if you're looking at kind of how the goalies were playing heading into this tournament, Korpisalo actually had a pretty fantastic January, and that's one of the reasons why the Bruins are back in a playoff spot, because that tandem of Korpisalo and Jeremy Swayman had been playing very well, like near top of the NHL save percentages at 5-on-5. I mean, in a short tournament like this, you can't afford to just go with the reputation guy. You got to take some chances, and you could either go with Kevin Lankinen as the backup or go with the guy who is playing pretty well heading into the tournament and give Korpisalo a shot. I mean, it can't hurt. And Saros just isn't the same guy that he used to be playing for them. Those guys need to have the confidence to go out there and create some offense. They can't be worrying about, any shot going in the back of the net and being down. So whatever gives them the most confidence, that they got to run with that, I think.
I mean, I am so intrigued to see what Finland Sweden's going to look like tomorrow, because the Swedes didn't exactly have the easiest of paths yesterday getting by the hosts. And, well, you say Saros is a veteran who's having a rough season. The Swedes are going with Jacob Markstrom tomorrow, who's a veteran probably having the roughest season out of any big name goalie in the National Hockey League. So you have a squad in Finland that got slapped in the face out of the gate against the Swedes, who realistically probably should have won yesterday's game by a lot more than they actually did. But it feels a lot more dire and a lot more do or die, perhaps, than I think either country maybe expected tomorrow's game to feel on both sides, because the loser of tomorrow's game is going to be going, oh boy.
I really wish that game wasn't a 6:10 Eastern start either. That one should be featured at least in the morning. Come on, that's a bit too early. No, this isn't the Nagano games we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
Ice time is tough to come by in Italy now, I guess.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, that the time difference is always difficult. I mean, now you got, as you mentioned, Finland, Sweden is going to be so meaningful for those two teams, and you got that built-in rivalry as well. I mean, which team do you think comes out more desperate?
That's a good one. I mean, you got to go with Finland because they lost their first game. I don't think anybody, if I remember correctly, the format set up where everybody kind of advances. There's like a play-in game to the quarterfinals. So your path just gets harder the worse you do in the round robin. But man, you can't go 0-2 to start the tournament and feel like you have the best shot at it. So I would think the pressure's more on Finland, although, Sweden only 5-2 against Italy. Nobody really saw that coming too. So you're going to bet they're going to be wanting to make a statement to show that they belong with Canada and USA among the gold medal hopefuls or favorites at the very least.
Yeah, I would say like the thing for Sweden, like the pressure for them is just you let Italy stick around with you for so long. Like Finland is going to be, they're going to come out desperate because they know that they dropped the game that was winnable for them until the third period. So they're going to be, they understand that they cannot allow Sweden to get on them early. They're going to come out hard. And I think especially Finland, that's such a big rivalry for them against Sweden. Like that's their biggest rival. So those games always a little extra pep in the step. And I do think that there's going to be some players like Mikko Rantanen. Like I'm expecting him to have to step up a bit more as a leader on this team to really, especially against Sweden, they're so dominant in so many places. Like you need someone to step up. And as you said, like you can't play timid. You have to go look at all these other top teams. They're not sitting back. They're full steam ahead in this tournament. So you have to expect you're going to be seeing a little bit of that in this game.
Is there, other than Slovakia, is there another dark horse that has emerged in these early games so far?
I thought the Czechs would be a darker horse than they are. Lucas Tostal is good enough to steal a game versus anybody. The problem is outside of their top line of Marty Necas, Tomas Hertl, David Pastrnak, the depth drop-off is swift and ridiculous. And, I mean, the Czechs hung in there for a little bit, but Canada was just too much to muster. I really don't think this year we're going to have a crazy dark horse outside of the four names at the top. Obviously, Russia would have been the fifth, but I like what I saw from the Slovaks. I think they might be the closest thing we have to that team. Maybe
Only one
Germany.
for me is Switzerland.
I was gonna
Switzerland
go with
is
them
that
too.
pesky team that if they get a good goaltending performance, like, look, you got Roman Yossi, pretty good hockey player, right? They got, they do have like Timo Meyer. They got names on that team.
Yeah.
It's just, can they get the goaltending? France, not exactly the biggest test. So and Canada knows, like Canada talked a lot. They gave Switzerland quite a bit of credit, maybe a little bit too much credit. But I think if there's a team that can pull off an upset, and I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've lived it. 2006. I remember that game.
Yeah.
Switzerland is very much capable of a shocker, but it's going to be tough. Like, people say, "Oh, let's see if they can do it against Canada." This team Canada ain't going to make it too easy on them.
Yeah. I was going to mention Switzerland too. I mean, they are always, you kind of look at them as like the old who's the most underrated player in the NHL discussion. It was always Louis Eriksson to the point where he wasn't underrated anymore. That's kind of like Switzerland on the international stage. Like they always seem to just be right in the mix. And I thought it was interesting in their opener, they went with a guy I'd never heard of, Leonardo Giannoni in net. And I guessing they're keeping the NHL goalie that they have on the roster kind of fresh for the Canada game in Akira Schmid, who's played pretty well so far this season for Vegas. So I thought, yeah, Czechs with Dostal, they had a chance to surprise. I think the same with the Swiss with Schmid in net. I think he's the guy that can really steal a game on the international stage, although I don't know if after today's game for Canada, I really can't see anybody beating them the way that they played today, but we'll see.
I think Germany might be that dark horse, if anybody, just because nobody outside of those typical favorites has a top center who can drive an entire game as much as Germany does with Leon Draisaitl, and to have him and Tim Stützle running the shots, like that's a squad I would not want to get into a track meet with.
Yeah.
Well, and you have Maurice Sider on the back end too. You got Paterka. Like they got good talent. Like that's a team that's been emerging. It's just we haven't seen it all come together for them. And they had what a great game they had to start things off. But one game is not going to be enough. They're going to have to really show it against some really quality opponents.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting and going to be a lot of great hockey ahead, but we have a lot more to discuss. We'll talk a little Team Canada, a little Team USA, as those two squads made their first games in this Olympic tournament. We'll have that coming up next on the NHL Squad Show Olympic Edition. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal, and it works right from your phone or computer. You could even keep your existing number. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnhl. That's QUO.com/lockedonnhl. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, guys. Team Canada, they got their first game going, and as you alluded to, they looked pretty darn good. What were some of your key takeaways? Ian, let's start with you this time from Team Canada's big first game.
Yeah, I think David mentioned it earlier. Like the Canada's setting the tone both offensively and physically. Like in the early minutes of that game, we saw Connor McDavid level a big hit in the offensive zone. Nathan McKinnon was out there. Like these guys seemed like men on a mission for sure. And it's just the biggest question coming into this tournament for Canada was the goaltending. Jordan Binnington, we talked earlier about guys who haven't been playing up to scratch this season in the NHL. He's one of the worst goaltenders in the NHL this season. Comes in, posts a shutout against Czechia team that, a lot of people thought would surprise. So just top to bottom, they're just so formidable. I know I'm biased as a Canadian, but it's just crazy to see the oldest player in the tournament continuing to dominate. And then you got the youngest guy in the tournament and Macklin Celebrini making his impact felt early on with the opening goal. He had a couple other opportunities. All four lines were rolling. I guess the one concern was Josh Morrissey left the game due to injury. So they'll have to call on Travis Sanheim, I think, as their next man up. So if he's hurt, that's a bit of a problem. But, I expected a bit more from Czechia. David Pastrnak played all right, but held off the score sheet. Obviously, they're missing Pavel Zacha, which is a big hole for them to fill. But Canada, it's hard to see anybody really beating them in this tournament, to be honest, the way they look today.
I would agree with you. I think the Morrissey thing is pretty significant just because without Josh Morrissey, I think the one area where the U.S. really has a leg up on Canada is at the blue line, because Sanheim, he's a vet. He's good. He's not great, but I wonder if the Canadians could have potentially gone a different way. And you keyed on it a little bit, but the thing that stood out to me the most was Macklin Celebrini is ridiculous. For his age, I hesitate to throw the G word around, but I think generational might be the most acceptable term. Just to see him hanging with the big boys. He's not even at drinking age yet. He is in some part. I think he is in Milan, but
in Canada he is.
Yeah,
Canada he is for sure, but not in the States. But look, when you can run the forward pairings that the Canadians can, there was a tweet that went big. We're talking biblical levels of greed, seeing McKinnon to McDavid to Crosby on the power play, and then running out Cale Makar as the top. Don't take penalties against Canada. Please don't.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, and you brought up, Ian, it's not just the skill. Like, right off the hop, Connor McDavid's like, I want to just absolutely crush somebody in the corner. Like, he doesn't do that all the time in the NHL. This is what it means. Like, it was just like bottled up. This was bottled up for these guys for so many years, and then it just kind of exploded, right? And I just like the fact that Canada came into this game thing like, this is business. We're not going to play around here. We're going to go right off the hop, show everyone who we are. And the other part of this too is the guys that maybe were put on this team, and you're like, really? Like Bo Horvat? Unbelievable goal he had. Like him winning. He says, I would fill the water bottles if it meant being on this team. Like these guys, but these guys weren't just put on this team because they can do some of the small things. Like they can contribute in so many different ways. Mark Stone, I know a lot of people were bringing up him like, oh, he's always injured and he's older. And it's like, yeah, he can also score some pretty good goals too. Like him and Marner, the chemistry there. Sidney Crosby is your third line center. It's just absolutely criminal. And, Nathan McKinnon should have probably had a goal. Another goal in this game, but that was taken back by a questionable penalty call. So, that's just the thing is Canada's got just so many ways that they can beat you. And, everyone was talking about the goaltending. And this is going to prove once again that it doesn't matter who's in net for Canada. Like even like 2014, you could have had anyone. You had generational Carey Price in net, but like Canada doesn't really need to worry about who's in goal when you have players who can play all over the ice like they do. They're responsible defensively and they can still push the pace. Like John Cooper's like, let's just play in the other end. We don't need to worry about defending when we could just have the puck in their opponent's zone for however long we need to. So, yeah, I mean, look, Czechia, I expected a little bit more, but you just see the depth of talent wasn't there to go up against Canada. We'll see as the tournament goes along and they get tested a bit more against teams that have a bit more of the upper echelon and the depth to go toe-to-toe and match things up a little bit better. And, yeah, I mean, Canada has to be pretty happy that, other than the Morrissey injury, there weren't any glaring issues that you could point to in this game.
Yeah. I think I saw a stat where McDavid had more attempts on net than Czechia had scoring chances. Like he was unreal all over the ice. You mentioned the new guys on the team too, like Nick Suzuki, who had that penalty called on him to wipe out that McKinnon goal. He scored later on. It pains me to say it, but as the Canadiens captain, he is like, I was able to cover him, watch him win the OHL champion MVP when the Guelph Storm won in 2019. This kid, he has so much talent, so much leadership. Just to be able to add him to the mix it's just an embarrassment of riches, and makes you wonder, like that trade with Max Pacioretty a few years ago. If Vegas had Marner, Stone, and Suzuki, that would probably be the best line in the NHL right now. Canada so stacked, and to be able to add those younger guys to the mix just makes them even more dangerous.
And they didn't even add Matthew Schaefer. Amazing.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Connor Bedard.
Waiting in the wings for 4 years from now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable. All right, we have got more to get to. Team USA also had their first game. We're going to talk about that and more coming up on the NHL Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events that you only get to see on the biggest stage once every 4 years. And that's why the Winter Games on FanDuel just make sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast, speed skating races that are decided by inches or millimeters, hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off, even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. All right, guys, Team USA also had their first game. Looked pretty darn good against Latvia. What stood out, Zach, to you most about Team USA?
I mean, before we get things going, oh, mama, don't you cry. Oh, okay, I had to get that out of the way. Now, with that being said, it was the fourth line. There was a lot of, needless to say, controversy about, oh, Brock Nelson on this team? JT Miller on this team? Why is Jack Hughes on the fourth line? They were the best offensive line by far for the Americans today. Like Brock Nelson and Jack Hughes look like they've been playing together their whole lives, which is crazy because Brock Nelson looks like he's 60.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you see a Jack Hughes on the fourth line, and he looked way better. Obviously, Four Nations didn't go so well for him, and I think if the U.S. want to go far in this tournament, they're going to need a guy like Jack Hughes to be not on the fourth line at some point. I think it's nice to have him, that depth, but I think he's got a lot more to give to this team, and I think you probably are going to see him move up at some point. But I mean, also the Quinn Hughes factor. Like, they didn't have Quinn Hughes last year.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a Quinn Hughes on your team, you're going to be a better team. And it showed. I think maybe Team USA is going to have to learn a little bit about the rules in the WIHF with when it comes to goal players in the crease, because we know they like to play that tough as nails style, get in the kitchen and all that stuff. But WIHF, I mean, look, as a Canadian watching those goals get called back, but then the goal against Canada the other day not get called back, it just goes to show that the international officiating still has some kinks to work out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure the US are going to realize, okay, we can play tough, but we have to be. There's some areas you're going to have to work on there. But I mean, that's a team that looks ready to go. Guys who probably either were missing from the last year's tournament or didn't have their best performance. They know that they gotta get off to a good start here, and they certainly did today.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has been made of JT Miller, Vincent Trocheck being on the team instead of guys like Jason Robertson or Cole Caulfield. And you could kind of see why in today's game, talking about like the toughness, how hard they play. I think Chris Cuthbert mentioned it on the Canadian broadcast where those two Rangers specifically were brought in for kind of that penalty killing expertise as well. So you're kind of balancing out that toughness with a couple guys who will be out on the ice in those key moments. Whereas if you had Robertson, Caulfield, obviously would add to the talent level, but if you're getting into penalty trouble or it's a physical game, maybe those guys are kind of lost in that mix. So Team USA looked so good, so deep on the blue line. Yeah, they probably have the better blue line top to bottom. If you can roll out like Quinn Hughes, Zach Werenski, Charlie McAvoy as your top three guys getting the most minutes, you're in a pretty good spot. Connor Hellebuck, he's had his struggles this year as well, but he's the reigning MVP, Vezina Trophy winner. It feels like it's a Canada USA kind of on a collision course. That's what everybody wants in the gold medal game. And really through the first games for every country, I don't think there's any reason to doubt that that's kind of where we're headed in this tournament.
Were you guys at all surprised by the physicality that we've seen so far? I mean, we saw it at the Four Nations a year ago, but historically the Olympics are not quite as physical as, let's say, NHL hockey. Are you surprised at the physicality?
No, not in the slightest. These guys have been waiting, 12 years to be back on this stage, in this moment? If you're a fan, you've been chomping at the bit. Imagine if you play the sport for a living. Of course, you want to go out, represent your country, kick the crap out of whoever's standing next to you on the ice. Like, maybe it's just the evolution of the sport, and maybe the days of the Olympics being more finesse oriented might just be, I don't want to say completely over, but evolving.
And like they said on the broadcast too, like on the Canadian broadcast, talking about how the IOC and the International Hockey wants to get a little more to the North American style, where physicality is more accepted, especially in the men's tournament, where you saw some hits, you saw some stuff happening. It's just like, all right, these are NHL playoff prison rules happening right now.
Yeah,
I think you know what, it's good that they're if like that's the way it's going to be called. Do it right off the hop. Don't don't be flip flopping back and forth. Now I'm hoping that the whatever has been accepted as a level of okay, we're allowing this stuff to happen. It doesn't change as the tournament goes along because it's so hard once you dial it up to dial it back.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's my only concern with that. But I mean, look, I think if you see how these teams are setting the tone now, I think it's good. I think Four Nations brought that out a lot of teams last year. And I think I'm sure a lot of the officials were brought in to say, look, these guys are, as Zach said, these guys have been waiting for this for a while. So don't be going out with the whistles on a penalty parade, because it's going to be a long day for everyone. So yeah. I just hope that the way it's been officiated doesn't change, because that's going to be very frustrating to watch if the standards change.
And the physicality too, this might be where the kind of shorter ice surface comes into play. Like guys are forechecking, they're maybe not letting up as they used to, because they're used to having a few extra inches to play the puck. Maybe they're coming in a bit quicker than they used to. That could be a real factor as well. And I'm not surprised about the physicality. You've seen some kind of questionable hits already. The Austin Matthews taking a hit to the head in the USA Latvia game. Some guys taking a few liberties here and there, but I think unlike the Four Nations where there was actual gloves dropping, like we know that's not going to happen, but guys are going to have to really rein it in terms of potential, hits to the head or boarding penalties, stuff like that, which could really, like a major penalty in this tournament, could really turn the tide of a game. So you got to be really cautious about that for sure.
No doubt. Look, I think the key is consistency with officiating. Whatever the standard is, it should stay the standard so the players know what to expect, the fans know what to expect, and we get an even, fair quality of officiating throughout the tournament. Well, if you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You get access to ad-free audio for your favorite NHL team, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. And you'll get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of your favorite team's show. So check out the link in the show notes for more information about the Everydayer Club. Check it out today. I want to thank everyone, David Morisuti from Locked On Leafs, Zach Berman from Locked On Devils, and Ian McLaren from Locked On Bruins for joining me today. I'm Gil Martin. We will be back tomorrow with another episode of the Locked On NHL Olympic Squad Show. Thanks for watching and listening, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.